thank you all for joining today. Just a little bit of background about me. I spent 21 years in the phone company building all kinds of software. And then probably 89, I got into the quality improvement, TQM world, and then that morphed into Six Sigma in the 80s. And so I've been involved in trying to improve things in various applications and various locations over the last 25-odd years. And one of the things I've sort of learned now, you know, I've done all kinds of Six Sigma stuff, but you don't need to have all that knowledge and all of that stuff to actually start solving big problems. So my goal for you here is to understand that Excel is really a power tool. And when we got started, all of our consultants were always talking about how they were going to find all this low-hanging fruit in the business and save lots of money. And we quickly discovered that all of the low-hanging fruit had already been picked by somebody, right? If you can see it, people are going to eat it, right? I got an apple tree out in my front yard, and it's on a street, and people pick apples when they come by, right? So, but what I found is there's invisible low-hanging fruit. Now, most companies are spending probably a third of their total revenues fixing stuff that shouldn't be broken and throwing away stuff that can't be fixed. Now, if you can figure out how to not do that anymore, then you can get the people that are working in all of your fix-it factories and put them back to work on really serving customers, and then customers notice, and then you get more business and everything else works for you. So I'm going to encourage you that this is the goal, is to go about finding a way to make this really rock and roll for you. So over the years, I've really focused on, in Excel, every multi-million-dollar project I worked on used Excel pivot tables to consolidate information, right? So the invisible low-hanging fruit is hiding somewhere in all of the data you collect, And I think people think that they have to go out and collect data. No, most companies are collecting so much data right now, they don't know what to do with the stuff they've got. So I'm going to encourage you to just go look for the data that's already out there about defects and variation and things that aren't working right? Because there's somebody collecting that bit of information. So over the years, we saved $20 million in postage costs, $16 million in adjustment costs, and the telephone company worked with a wireless company to reduce their service order errors from 17% to 3% in just 4 months. Right? We figured out what the problem was in like an afternoon, but it takes a while to implement changes in IT systems. So it took a while to get that going, but that saved like $3 million a year in rework. And I worked with a healthcare company, and they had $12 million a year in denied claims, and we went in and started researching that and actually saved $5 million. They figured it out on a Friday, implemented the changes on Monday, and started saving $5 million. But the problem is, most of the time people just don't know where to look. So I want to encourage you to start chasing big dollars, right? Because there's big dollars sitting out there. Do this in Excel. Well, in Excel, there's line by line transaction level data about all the things that are going wrong somewhere. It could be service order errors. It could be, in this case, there's different kinds of problems in healthcare where they have complications when they're delivering somebody, a baby or something like that. Currently, I'm working with the World Pediatric Project to try and improve care for babies in third world countries and small Caribbean islands and things like that. And so there's certain kinds of things that lead to problems and infant death. And so we're trying to find ways to track and improve and change things around that. So there's all this line-by-line stuff, and that's the raw data that we're looking for. And this can come from billing systems. This can come from service systems. It can come out of your anything that's tracking. Can come out of SAP. I worked with a big company that makes chemicals, right? And so they had all this information in SAP about what was going wrong in terms of what they were doing and so on and so forth. And we pulled, 50, 60,000 rows of data out and summarized it with a pivot table, and the people there instantly knew what it was they needed to do to start to fix. So we're going to take all of this raw data, and then we're going to use pivot tables to summarize all of that in a useful way. All right? So we're going to get the refined data, and we're going to pull that all together. And then what we have to do is, since nobody, as far as I can tell, can read any kind of spreadsheet, right? Unless you're a finance person or a CPA, you can't tell anything from a, from a spreadsheet. So what we have to do is turn that into some charts and graphs that are going to tell a really compelling business improvement story. So that's our goal here, is to take the raw data, summarize it in a useful way, and turn it into a compelling story. So the way we do that, pivot tables are going to get you the refined data, and then we're going to get the right charts in here to actually create this presentation, right? And we make a product called the QI Macros, which will do all the charts and graphs that are necessary to do this. So that's kind of the structure of this whole thing. Raw data to pivot tables into something we can use, and to turn that into some incredibly good data. So this is really data mining. And, you know, I think there's a lot of discussion now about big data, where companies are trying to use big data to figure out how to slice and dice their demographics so that they can offer a specific thing to somebody. I don't know about the rest of you, but if you Googled something, some product or service, and clicked on it, and found it through Google, well, Google will chase you, right? They've set up a thing where it will follow you. So if you look for window shades and you go click on something and find a window shade company, then that window shade company is going to keep showing up in pop-up ads even if you're searching for something else. That's Google using big data to figure out that you were interested in window shades a week ago, and we're going to keep offering you a link so that we can get money every time you click on it. So these are the kinds of things that big data does. But that's about selling more. And what we're really focused on here is how do we start to take the problems in the business and eliminate those problems and eliminate the costs associated with those problems and start to excite our fearless customer base that we're really doing cool things for them. All right, so we're going to do that with pivot tables. And so instead of big data, you can do a lot of this with small data. You know, even if you have a gazillion records out there, if you sample, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40,000, that's going to give you a representative sample. You know, you probably don't even need that many, all right? So you don't need a billion records. What you need is a representative sample, and then we can start to use pivot tables. So most people look at words and phrases and things like that and go, I don't know what to do with that. Well, pivot tables, and most of you probably had some experience with pivot tables. I've found few people that are really stellar at pivot tables, but pivot tables can count the occurrences of a keyword, a phrase, a number, and it can sum or average numbers, and it can turn all this raw data into knowledge and help us drill down into these mounds of data. And again, pivot tables are how I've found millions of dollars. In every project I work on, it always starts with pivot tables, right? And when I teach this to people out there in the world, you know, it's not uncommon for a small manufacturing company to find $100,000 or something like that. There's big money, but it's hidden in places that people don't quite know how to look at. Now, I'm going to just a second and talk about one of the things I've been noticing a lot lately, which is people are trying to use improvement methods and data to support their own pet performance and their own pet solution to something. And that you start to find data to support your opinion, you're going in the wrong direction. What you want to do is let the data lead you to what the real problem is, and then you can fix the real problem, and then you're going to look like a superstar, all right? You know, when I was in the phone company, we had this, I was in the total quality department for like 5 years, but everybody but me was doing kind of silly stuff. They were documenting all these old bad processes we had and trying to do something with them. But eventually the leadership team got smart and figured out we weren't doing anything useful and downsized that department. Well, I'd helped the finance VP save $20 million in postage and $16